Happy Sabbath, everyone. So I wrote out my sermon because I'm not very good at public speaking. So with no further ado, here we go. Impending deadlines, blaring newsreels, chiming cell phones, flashing ads, bustling crowds, speeding cars. This loud society screams for us to always be available, to never take a break, to answer our phones on the first ring, to get our work done faster, to buy this new phone or this new health product or this new shoe. This is a loud world, yes, but it creates a feeling of isolation. Isolation from real connection, isolation from feeling, isolation from God. But are we ever truly isolated from God? Can we be isolated from God? There was once a gruff but kind pastor who traveled to native reserves all over America giving Bible studies. Now, reserves are often very different from the rest of the country. While most Americans only believe in peer-reviewed journals, scientific studies, and logical thought, many people on Native American reserves still recognize that demon possession is prevalent, have witch doctors that practice archaic medicine and try to appease spirits through offerings. This was the community the pastor was trying to reach. Because of his opposing views, the pastor received quite a few death threats. Many of the letters he received were from spiritual leaders and witch doctors, claiming that the pastor was stealing souls from the spirits. He had been stealing souls from the spirits for about 30 years when he shared his account of an interaction with a demon-possessed man for a children's story. This is what I remember from the awesome tale he told. One night after a prayer meeting in a particularly bad part of town, the pastor was walking down an alley to his car. As usual, he was the last to leave, making sure to speak and pray with everyone before they walked home. It had grown dark by the time he strode out of the building. A sense of dread filled him, and he felt as if eyes were boring into his back, tracking his every movement. He quickened his stride and glanced about the dank alley. There was no one there. Before he had the chance to reach the car door, he heard a shout from behind. Whipping about, he found the source of the broken cry. A tall, thickly muscled man with glowing red eyes and bared teeth was barreling towards him. He was approaching with a knife pointed straight at the pastor's heart and was not touching the alley floor. No, he was levitating 2 feet from the ground. A cold sweat broke out over the pastor, his hands shaking and heart pounding. The man's eyes spoke of impending death, and the pastor knew that he could not win a fight against him, strong as he was. As the demon-possessed man came closer, the pastor could do nothing but send a shaky prayer to God. He simply said, "God, help me," and screwed his eyes tightly shut. He stood there for a full minute, no sharp pains emanating from his chest, no slashing wounds appearing on his body, not even a sound, save for his own heavy breathing. Slowly peeling his eyes open, he found the man not 1 foot from him, his glowing red eyes fixed just over the pastor's shoulder. "Why'd you stop?" he asked in frightened confusion. Not bothering to look at him, the demon-possessed man spoke for the first time. "I cannot harm you. You have an angel behind you," and then vanished into the dark void of the alley shadows. Hearing the story as a child, I understood the concept of its lesson, knew that God was with me no matter what and would never leave me. But I never expected something like this to happen to me. I always thought that miracles were stories told around a campfire, while yarns of myths and legends were unraveled. Tales to scare children into believing in God, chronicles of long-ago battles fought by ancient warriors, events locked deep in the archives of time. I never expected to find myself in a miracle, never thought that God would come in contact with my story in such an obvious way. During my freshman year, I was the epitome of a teenage horse girl. I was obsessed with learning all the breed names, would vehemently correct people if they used the wrong word to describe a horse's coat color, and studied horse body language books. Yes, they do exist. To find out if my great-uncle's horse liked me. But my favorite activity was riding lessons. I loved my instructor. She was one of the best reining riders in all the country, trained show horses and adopted abused animals to give them a better life. But I loved her most of all because after the hardest lessons, she would take me on a trail ride to get a soda from the general store. I was on one such ride that the miracle happened. We were riding back to the farm, and I had just crossed the small country road when a driver decided that now was a wonderful time to scare some horses. Honking their car horn, they whooshed by us, causing my green horse to bolt. Now, green horses are the most untrained horses in the barn, and, according to my rough and tumble teacher, the ones inexperienced riders rode if they wanted to learn. So there I sat atop 1,000 pounds of untrained, terrified muscle, pounding down a dusty goat trail. We started at a canter and very quickly progressed our way up to a flat-out gallop. I pulled on the reins, sat back in the saddle, and desperately called for her to stop. We rounded a corner, and there it was, a thick oak branch stretching out over the trail at chest height. I pulled the reins harder, and soon her nose was pressed against my leg, but still she did not stop. My horse pounded straight for the branch, her head pulled to my knee, but still, somehow, moving faster than before. I couldn't duck, that would only cause the limb to crush my head. I couldn't jump the branch like Robin Hood, and I couldn't turn my horse to go around it. I was going to die at the hooves of a horse. With the wind whipping in my hair and the setting sun glowing against my skin, I raised my face to the great blue sky and shouted, "God, if you're there, stop this horse." As soon as the last word left my lips, my horse skidded to a halt, the oak branch within touching distance. That was the most scared I had ever been in my life, but I was smiling like a lunatic when my instructor sped around the corner. God was not locked away in the archives of time, his actions only survived by myths and legends. He was there, with me, listening to my every whispered word and shouted prayer. We are not the first to doubt his presence. There once was a servant boy who felt the same, and his is my favorite Bible story. It's found in 2 Kings 6, verse 8 through 23. I read it in the New International Version if you want to follow along. Now the king of Aram was at war with Israel. After conferring with his officers, he said, "I will set up my camp in such and such a place." And the man of God sent word to the king of Israel, "Beware passing that place, because the Arameans are going down there." So the king of Israel checked on the place indicated by the man of God. Time and again, Elisha warned the king so that he was on his guard in such places. This enraged the king of Aram. He summoned his officers and demanded of them, "Tell me, which of us is on the side of the king of Israel?" "None of us, my lord the king," said one of his officers, "but Elisha, the prophet who is in Israel, tells the king of Israel the very words you speak in your bedroom." "Go, find out where he is," the king ordered, "and so I can send men and capture him." The report came back, "He is in Dothan." Then he sent horses and chariots and a strong force there. They went by night and surrounded the city. When the servant of the man of God got up and went out early the next morning, an army with horses and chariots had surrounded the city. "Oh no, my lord, what shall we do?" the servant asked. "Don't be afraid," the prophet answered. "Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." And Elisha prayed, "Open his eyes, Lord, so that he may see." Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked around and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around them. As the enemy came toward him, Elisha prayed to the Lord, "Strike this army with blindness." So he struck them with blindness as Elisha had asked. Elisha told them, "This is not the road, and this is not the city. Follow me, and I will lead you to the man you were looking for." And then he led them to Samaria. After they entered the city, Elisha said, "Lord, open the eyes of these men so they can see." Then the Lord opened their eyes, and they looked, and there they were inside Samaria. When the king of Israel saw them, he asked Elisha, "Shall I kill them, my father? Shall I kill them?" "Do not kill them," he answered. "Would you kill those you have captured with your own sword or bow? Set food and water before them so they may eat and drink, and then go back to their master." So he prepared a great feast for them, and after they had finished eating and drinking, he sent them away, and they returned to their master. And so the bands from Aram stopped raiding Israel's territory. This oppressive world may try to convince you that you are all alone, may try to drown out his whispers of love with loud, flashing distractions. But even when you cannot see God through the battles waged on earth, he sees you. He sees your struggles, sees your pain, stands behind you, listens to your cries for help, and fills valley ridges with armies of fire for you, all for you. He's beside you even in the isolating crowd. So look up from your busy lives, from your hard work days, from your faithful studies, and look for God. Take a moment to put away your work, your buzzing phone, your busy schedule, and just listen for his voice. He is there, waiting for you to cease rushing. Stop trying to keep up with the Jensens, and simply take a silent minute to listen. Look for God in the swaying pines, the glowing sunsets, your friend's smile, a kind word from a stranger. Look for God because he is always there. All you need to do is open your eyes.